Hello, everybody, and welcome to Deep Left Field, the Toronto Stars baseball podcast. I'm Mike Willman. It is episode 337, and we are 2 weeks and a day away from the beginning of the 2026 baseball season. The Toronto Blue Jays will open at home against the West Sacramento Athletics, and Denzel Clark, who is on his way to Houston, he's there by now as you hear this, with the rest of Team Canada as they have advanced to the second round of the World Baseball Classic for the first time in tournament history. We're going to talk about that first round of the World Baseball Classic where Canada finished first in Pool A, and their prize is a one-game quarterfinal matchup against the United States in Houston on Friday night. It was the first time where Canada did not have to play the U.S. in pool play, so they get an embarrassed American team in the quarters. Team U.S.A. finishing second to Italy in Pool B. Italy will play Puerto Rico in the other quarterfinal in Houston. This is our Meet the New Guy episode of Deep Left Field for spring training. I gathered a ton of interviews, a ton of content, a ton of audio while I was down in spring training. I'm back home now, but you're going to hear that content between now and opening day, and you're going to love it. We've got some great shows lined up for you, and they will not be dropping just every Thursday. So make sure you subscribe to or favorite this program on your favorite podcast app so that you never miss an episode. We're having two new guys join us, both relievers, both untraditional relievers, right-handers Tyler Rogers and Chase Lee, as well as Arjun Nimmala, who is not a new guy to the Blue Jays, but he's never been on the show before, and it's his first major league camp, and he's getting some serious playing time in the wake of a lot of the Blue Jays gone at the World Baseball Classic. That may change soon with the return of Leo Jimenez. Panama was eliminated in Pool A. Alejandro Kirk's return is not going to have an effect on Nimmala's playing time, but Kirk will be back as well, Mexico having been knocked out by Italy in the game in which Italy won Pool B easily. And Italy is the thief of fun here. It's impossible not to love that group, but after pulling off a huge upset against the United States, they went into their game Wednesday night knowing that if they lost to Mexico, and Mexico didn't score more than 4 runs, both Italy and Mexico would be advancing and the United States would be out. I understand you're trying to win every game. You want to win the pool. Leave nothing to chance, all of that stuff. I get it. And I guess this is only partially tongue-in-cheek, but also couldn't have lost 1-0. Knock out the United States would have been nice. Would have been nice. That's all I'm saying is it would have been nice. Instead, Italy wins the pool. The U.S. finishes second. U.S. will play Canada. Had Italy and Mexico conspired to knock out the United States, would have been nice. That's all. Would have been fun. Would have been nice. Anyway, you will hear from Tyler Rogers. You'll hear from Chase Lee. You'll hear from Arjun Nimmala on this program. Before we get to that, though, let's take a look, first of all, at Canada's historic victory on Wednesday afternoon, beating Cuba 7-2 to win Pool A and advance to the second round for the first time in the history of this tournament. This is the 6th World Baseball Classic. Canada has never gotten out of the first round. They were knocked out by math in the first one in 2006 when they were in a 3-way tiebreaker with the U.S.A. and Mexico. They had beaten the States and lost to Mexico. Mexico beat Canada, lost to the U.S., so the numbers got involved and Canada lost. Had Canada beaten Mexico in their final game, I want to say they gave up 7 runs in the first inning, might just have been 6. Had Canada beaten Mexico in that last game the first time, they would have advanced. Last time in 2023, had Canada beaten Mexico in their last game, they would have advanced. But they lost to Mexico in that game 10-3. Randy Arozarena hit a big 3-run double in the 6th inning that blew the game open. In 2009, it was a double knockout tournament, and Canada's pool played in Toronto, and everyone was worried about Venezuela because we assumed that Canada would lose to the United States and beat Italy. And in fact, Canada held back their best starting pitcher, Scott Richmond, at the time, for that game against Venezuela, but the game never happened. Canada lost a 1-run thriller to the United States, and then Italy beat them to knock them out of that double knockout tournament in 2009. 2013, Canada got mercied by Italy in the first game, then beat Mexico in a game that featured that bench-clearing brawl in the 9th inning when first base coach Larry Walker paired off with Alfredo Aceves, the Yankees pitcher, and after the game, Walker said something like, "I'm staring into the eyes of Satan," or something like that. But then Canada didn't win another game, so they were out. 2017, they didn't win a single game. And 2026, they beat Colombia. They lost to Panama, a game they literally threw away with 2 errors in the same inning where Panama scored the winning runs. And then they beat Puerto Rico, the hosts. But it wouldn't have mattered if they hadn't beaten Cuba. Even if they had beaten Panama and gone into the game against Cuba 3-0, much like they did in 2006, there were only 4 teams then. They went 2-0 into that final game. If they hadn't beaten Cuba, they would have risked being eliminated by math. Instead, they finally won that must-win game that they needed to win. Cal Quantrill started, and he was brilliant. This is a tournament, remember, where you can't throw more than 65 pitches in a game. So if you're looking for length, you have to be efficient, and Quantrill had a 4-pitch inning in the 4th. He had a run where he retired 8 hitters in a row. He gave up only 1 unearned run, and it was unearned because of his own error, a completely unnecessary pickoff throw at first base that he threw away. But he left with Canada leading 2-1. Owen Casey had a sacrifice fly. Abraham Toro hit a homer. And then in the top of the 6th, Cuba just completely fell apart. 2 dropped pop-ups, a 2-base wild pitch, and the catcher trying to corral a baseball with his mask on strike 3 to Denzel Clark. Dead ball, Clark reaches, steals second 2 pitches later, and Otto Lopez hits 2-run single. The second dropped pop-up of the 2 was a foul ball, keeping Bo Naylor alive, and Naylor wound up ripping an RBI double. Casey drove in a run in the 9th for a little insurance, and James Paxton almost closed it out. Remember, pitch limits in the World Baseball Classic. Not only can nobody throw more than 65 pitches, but rest is prescribed depending on the number of pitches you throw. And James Paxton had thrown 49 pitches. He was 1 strike away from ending the game. But if he had thrown 1 more pitch, he wouldn't be able to pitch in the quarterfinals. So Ernie Witt took him out with an 0-2 count, 2 out, nobody on, and a 5-run lead. Eric Cerantola came in. You'll hear that name in the major leagues this season with the Kansas City Royals. Cerantola needed 1 pitch to get a pop-up, game over. Canada wins 7-2. Owen Casey, who you've heard on this program before, hit 500 for Canada in pool play. He has the all-time record with 8 RBIs. That's all-time for Canada at the World Baseball Classic. And their prize, again, a second-round matchup Friday the 13th against the United States, 8 p.m. Eastern in Houston. Canada will be a heavy, heavy underdog in the game. They have beaten the United States before. They have given them a run for their money several times. Michael Soroka is going to start that game. You never know. You never know. It's unlikely, but you never know. It was unlikely that they were going to beat Puerto Rico and Cuba to get out of this round. You never know. Now we go from pool play to knockout, 1 game. Quarterfinal is 1 game. Semifinal is 1 game. The final is 1 game. And Canada is 3 wins away from a World Baseball Classic championship. It would be extraordinarily unlikely. It would also be amazing. Here's hoping. Fingers crossed. They are certainly capable of beating the United States. Italy just did it. We shall see. But the United States is humiliated and they're embarrassed and they're going to be angry. That doesn't always necessarily work in baseball. But we'll see what happens Friday night. As for your Toronto Blue Jays, when I left spring training, they were 2-7-2 on the spring. And then they lost the day after I left. Atlanta beat them 9-5. Addison Barger had a couple of doubles. And then they went on a 5-game winning streak, including 4 shutouts in a row. The spring training results don't matter, but they were 2-7-2 when I left. They're 7-9-2 now. 4 shutouts in a row is fun. 2 of them on the same day. That would have been Sunday, March the 8th, when the Jays split their squad, sent half of them down to Sarasota to play the Baltimore Orioles, and Cody Ponce threw 2 perfect innings, and Arjun Nimmala went 2 for 2, stole a base, and scored the game's only run. And back home in Dunedin, they played the Tigers, beat them 5-0 behind 3 1/3 shutout innings from Kevin Gausman, who struck out 3 without a walk through 52 pitches. Addison Barger playing third base, getting a little action there. Goes 2 for 3 with a homer and 3 RBIs. Saturday, we're going back in time a little. They beat the Phillies 1-0. Max Scherzer made his spring debut with 4 no-hit innings, throwing 40 pitches, facing the minimum. And Chase Lee, who you'll hear later in this program, threw a hitless bottom of the 5th. He also threw 2/3 of an inning Wednesday night when the Jays got creamed by the Yankees and didn't allow a base runner. The Jays also beat Atlanta 7-0 behind 3 shutout innings from Dylan Cease, who threw 54 pitches. Brandon Valenzuela, the catcher the Jays picked up for Will Wagner at the deadline, hit a 3-run homer in that game. Wednesday night, not as good. Eric Lauer got knocked around a bit. The Yankees beat him 8-1. Cam Schlittler against the Jays went 3 2/3 innings of 2-hitter and allowed 1 run. And then Carlos Lagrange finished it up. And this is the guy who is the talk of Yankees camp. One of the Yankees' top pitching prospects. He threw 4 no-hit innings at the Blue Jays to finish the game and earn the save, continuing what's being a phenomenal spring for him. He's opened a lot of eyes. He may or may not make the team, but it appears as though he's going to contribute to the New York Yankees in some way this season. Spring training numbers don't matter, and I told you that when Eloy Jimenez was hitting 450. Eloy Jimenez is now hitting 281. His OPS has gone down 600 points in the week since I left Florida. But he does continue to hit the ball hard, and he does continue to make a good impression. In that left field battle that the Blue Jays won't call a battle between Nathan Lucas and Jesus Sanchez, but they're both left fielders and they're both left-handed hitters, so they can't both play. Right now, Nathan Lucas has an 842 OPS in the spring, including a grand slam that he hit last Friday. Jesus Sanchez has a 552 OPS for the spring, 390 points lower than Lucas. Again, that's not how they evaluate. That doesn't matter. I'm just telling you what's going on. What does matter is the Meet the New Guy show. Tyler Rogers was given a 3-year, $37 million contract in the offseason, and with good reason by your Toronto Blue Jays. An unusual outlay to a 35-year-old free agent pitcher, and especially a submariner like Rogers is. But he's been one of the best setup men in the major leagues over the course of the last 5 years. The numbers are tremendous. There's no platoon advantage. He is equally good against left-handers and right-handers. And as I wrote in the Toronto Star on Wednesday, every hitter who faces him becomes Brad Zimmer. Remember Brad Zimmer, the speed and defense and no bat outfielder that the Jays had as their 5th outfielder and perfectly suited for that job? Brad Zimmer's career OPS was 631. In his career, Tyler Rogers has held left-handed batters to a 625 OPS and right-handed batters to a 633 OPS. Every hitter Tyler Rogers faces becomes Brad Zimmer. Over the last 5 years, his ERA is 2.74. His WHIP is 1.09. He has led his league in appearances in 4 of the past 6 seasons. And so far this spring, in the Blue Jays' 18 games, He's been given the ball 7 times. Clearly, he wants a lot of work. He hasn't walked anybody yet, and he struck out 7, giving up 3 runs on 8 hits. Did give up a home run, which is unusual for him. It's a really interesting story. I think it's a pretty good signing, and I think we're going to see a lot of Tyler Rogers in very high leverage spots for your Toronto Blue Jays over the course of this season. I talked to him when we were down in Dunedin. Tyler, the one thing that sticks out for me over the winter when you signed was you said when the American League champions call, you pick up the phone. It feels like the Blue Jays have sort of almost a new cachet around the game after that World Series last year. So what was it like for you when you heard from them?
Well, I guess I kind of, in my own accounts of playing the Blue Jays last year, I guess that kind of made an impression on me as well. So, and they beat the brakes off us for 3 games. So that was in my head, and then obviously watching the World Series run too.
I was talking to Chase Lee, one of your fellow relievers, who gave up 3 home runs to the Blue Jays in the 1 inning he pitched against them last year, and then they traded for them. They made an impression on him, too. I mean, this was a relentless offense last year that we saw, and combined with great pitching and defense, it's got to be an attractive place for anybody to come.
You couldn't have said any better. I can't say any better than you did.
All right, well, so let's talk about you a little bit. It's a different look, obviously, the Submariners. Everybody asks you, I guess, how you got there in your delivery, so I don't want to be any different. How did you get there in your delivery?
Yeah, I guess long story short is I was a freshman year of college. My coach approached me about maybe dropping down, and I don't know why I said yes, but I did. And 15, 16 years later, here I am.
How long did it take you to get comfortable with it, and what sort of things can you do with the baseball from that angle that a conventional pitcher can't?
It was pretty natural from the beginning. I think that's probably why I stuck with it. Now it didn't look like it does now at the beginning. So, over time I got lower and lower. And then really once you get over the fact that you're not lighting up the radar gun like you used to, but I'm still throwing it as hard as I can. So yeah, you just kind of learn a new niche and maybe just a little bit of early success, I guess, to help me stick with it.
And the early success turns into later success, turns into a very successful major league career. And when I've looked at relievers in the past, it's been know your role. A lot of guys are very comfortable once they know their role and what they do. And looking at you, it's been almost exclusively the 8th inning for 4 or 5 years. You don't see that with anybody. Has it just been a thing where they say, okay, you are the setup man, you're pitching the 8th every day, every time you get the ball?
I think so. That's kind of been, like you said, that's been my role in the past. I think in today's age of baseball, especially the Blue Jays, they say, like, just go be good at what you're good at kind of thing. I guess the Giants in particular were like, you're good in the 8th, so just go do that, and kind of empowers you when you get like an inning like that. You kind of feel like the closer gets the 9th inning and no other reliever gets an inning, so it was kind of nice to have an inning like that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's different too, because in this age of baseball, you see a lot of matching up, and you see a lot of, you're going to work this pocket, and these are your 5 hitters, as opposed to just saying you get the 8th. But that seems to have been your deal in San Francisco, no matter who was coming up, which is a great skill to have.
Yeah, it's just having, I guess, I don't want to say consistency, but I knew that was my part of the game. And when you kind of know when you're going to go in, I think it's a lot easier on the body, and then you can in turn pitch more.
Which is, what you do. You look at the numbers, you've led your league in pitching 4 out of the last 6 years. How much of a point of pride is that for you? Or led your league in appearances?
Yeah, I never really set out to lead the league in appearances. It's just kind of happened, but it's very cool, and it's cool to look back on, like all your hard work throughout the season to be prepared every day, paying off like that. But it's never a goal of mine, like a specific goal of mine. My goal is to be healthy all season. And in turn, if you are, you can kind of say you be up there in the league.
But even, healthy or otherwise, to throw 77 times a season or 80, you've got to be able to recover quickly. You got to be able to bounce back. How much does the arm angle help with that? I mean, when people see a submariner or even a sidearmer, they're like, okay, rubber arm, we can send him out every day. But is it true, or is it just your ability to bounce back?
Yeah, I don't know if there's any validity to that. So I think also, too, if you look at pitches per inning, I'm one of the lower pitches per inning. So that's how I bounce back. not because I throw different than anybody.
Right, it's efficiency, I guess, which we're looking forward to seeing. The other thing, just to go back to that eighth inning thing, as opposed to the pockets, you have to be able to get both sides out, which is something that odd arm angle guys tend not to be able to do, right? Usually opposite side hitters hit side armors really well. How have you been able to control left-handers over the course of your career? Because you've done it very well.
Yeah, early in my career, actually, before I even made my debut, I got asked, how are you going to get lefties out? I said, I haven't even faced one yet. But you get kind of labeled early like that just for stereotypes or whatever. And actually, the 3-batter minimum was just implemented when I came up. So I was excited because then I got to face a lefty, whereas before I probably would have been taken out and never given a chance. So the 3-batter minimum gave me a chance to show I could get lefties out, which was nice.
Do you use different weapons against them than you use against right-handers on a regular basis?
No, I think it's beneficial to throw all your pitches to both hitters.
Clearly, it's worked for you. As we wrap this up with Tyler Rogers, you've got a twin brother in the major leagues too, who you've gotten to pitch with. How cool an experience is that?
It's the best experience. What a special 2 years to get to play with him. We went to separate colleges, and then he got drafted by the Twins, and then I got drafted by the Giants a year later. And I was always on the West Coast. He was always on the East Coast. And then he got called up like 4 years before I did. So I did 10 professional seasons so I did like 14 seasons without him. So to become teammates again was really fun and special. And, growing up, you're always known as the Roger twins or the boys. And, went to separate colleges and kind of got our own identities. And then to come back and be brothers again was pretty special.
Yeah, we were kind of thinking he might sign with the Jays too as a free agent this offseason. That would have been fun.
Yeah, my son, I have a 3-year-old who loved to come see Uncle Tay in the clubhouse after it wins and get ice cream. So when he got traded last year, my son was devastated.
That's too bad. But and that takes me to Kevin Gausman too, because his kids were devastated. But there's a story out there about the World Series, and you guys played basketball against him growing up in Colorado, right? I talked to him over the winter, and he said, like, one of you was 23 and one of you was 32, and he thought maybe you switched jerseys every once in a while.
Yeah, he did tell me that story too when I saw him, but we were number 0 and number 2, so he's got it he's remembering it kind of. But yeah, it's funny, we did grow up, but Kevin failed to mention that he was unhittable in high school, that's for sure.
Could he play basketball?
I don't remember him on the basketball court.
All right, and I guess the last thing for you is Rogers, right? Rogers owns this team. Rogers is you're going to see your name everywhere when you get up to Toronto. I'm sure that wasn't part of the attraction of coming here, but what's it going to be like to pitch at Rogers Center?
Yeah, that'll be pretty cool, right? I've made that joke a few times as a visiting player, but yeah, you're doing something right when your name's on all the trash cans. Yeah.
Your name is definitely on all the trash cans. Thank you so much for this. Great to get to know you. Wish you nothing but luck, and we'll see a whole bunch over the course of the year. So thank you.
Thanks. Go Jays.
That's Tyler Rogers. He finishes off with "Go Jays" right there. I always think that's kind of cute. Only a few players have done that. Isaiah Kiner-Falefa did it a couple of times in interviews that we've done. But there's Tyler Rogers, who is looking forward to pitching in a place where his name's on all the trash cans. 35 years old, he will get to pitch against his brother, or at least with his brother in town, second week of the season when the Minnesota Twins come to Rogers Center. And we'll try to get the Rogers Twins together for you for an episode of Deep Left Field when that happens. Also, of course, we'll have to try to get Alan Roden if he makes the team in Minnesota. Tyler Rogers, get used to hearing that name because he's probably going to pitch in about 80 games this season. And given the track record, he's probably going to pitch pretty well. Step aside for a second, and when we come back, a sidearming righty. We're raising our arm angle a little bit from submarine to sidearm. New Blue Jay Chase Lee joins us next. You're in Deep Left Field. I'm Mike Wilner. Thank you so much for joining us here on episode 337, 2 weeks from opening day for the 2026 season. A quick reminder, I've already reminded you once, I'll do it again. Favorite or subscribe to the podcast on your favorite podcast platform. That way you never miss an episode when we drop one on a not usual day. And if you want to leave us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts, we would appreciate it because it does help push the algorithm. And more people are interested in baseball than ever have been before in this town, at least for the last decade or so. And more people are finding podcasts than they ever have before. So do us a favor and help this podcast get suggested to people by Apple. And of course, word of mouth. Best way to spread the word. If you want to get in touch, best way to do it is email deepleftfield@thestart.ca. The mailbag is open every week, and it will be open this week again. Arjun Nimmala is coming up, one of the Blue Jays' top prospects. But first, I want to introduce you to Chase Lee. He came over to the Jays in a minor trade in December that was mostly kind of ignored. Middle of December, the Blue Jays pick up Chase Lee for a minor leaguer named Johan Simon, who none of you have ever heard of. But it's, again, another piece of the Blue Jays putting a puzzle together. Pitchers with different arm angles, different strengths. We just heard from the submariner, Tyler Rogers. Lee is more of a sidearm slinger in the Mark Eichhorn mold. And last year, with the Detroit Tigers in 32 appearances, put up a whip of 1.098. He only allowed 41 base runners in 37 and a third innings and had 36 strikeouts. Little trouble keeping the ball in the ballpark. He gave up 7 homers, but 3 of them were in one outing against the Blue Jays. So throw that out because he won't have to face them again. He's been outstanding in the spring. In 5 and a third innings, has allowed just 1 hit, 2 walks, 4 strikeouts. He's not going to make the team more than likely, but he will contribute to the bullpen over the course of the season. And he's got a really interesting story. This is not your traditional baseball player with a traditional route to the big leagues by any means. You're really going to enjoy getting to know Chase Lee. Chase, thanks for doing this. And I mean, we're still here in Florida, but welcome to Toronto.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me here, and I'm excited to be here.
Oh, we're thrilled to have you. When the Jays picked you up, when you found out about the trade after your first year in the big leagues in Detroit, what was your reaction going from like one playoff team to another?
Yeah, excitement. I mean, the guys obviously had an incredible run last year and get to watch it from TV, and then you get a phone call in the offseason that you get to be a part of that in hopes to help them win one more game. That's a really exciting phone call.
Yeah, win one more game, get 2 more outs, however it works. Did you watch the World Series, or were you I know a lot of guys on playoff teams are like, I don't want to watch baseball for a while.
Sure. So we lost out in the division series with Detroit. So I took the CS off, and then I turned back in for the World Series just to check it out. Obviously, a couple arms have been throwing really well on both sides, so I really wanted to just watch and learn. And my first year was kind of rocky. Had some really good stints and a couple bad stretches, so I wanted to obviously learn at the highest level watching guys. So as much as I wanted to be away from baseball, I also wanted to pay attention and watch the guys.
So what'd you learn, at least what'd you learn about the Jays in watching, not knowing obviously that a month later you'd be on the team?
Yeah, just how gritty they were. In easy words, like facing them earlier that year, they tagged me around pretty good. I think I gave up 4 and 3 home runs. So that was probably one of my worst games to my career. So I had that in my mind, and then just watching how they went about the game, how they played hard, was really fun to watch. And obviously they have an extreme amount of talent to go with that. So you combine talent and some gritty players, and you get a really good product.
And obviously, getting lit up by them didn't scare them away, right? They still wanted you.
Yeah, that was the funny thing is I don't know what I did, but I guess they beat me up and then recruited me. However that works. So.
Yeah, it works. I mean, it works, right?
Yeah, it works
and they like guys with funky arm angles. Obviously, Tyler Rogers is here. Yeah. You're here. You're more of a slinger, I guess, than a knuckle dragger. Sure. But how did you get there?
Yeah, so it was last resort. So coming out of high school, I was finished with baseball. I was unrecruited out of college. I played infield and threw from a conventional slot. So I went to school at the University of Alabama just to study school, to be a student. And they had a walk-on tryout. I went to the walk-on tryout, Did not make the team, but the coaching staff suggested that if I wanted to continue, maybe trying a different arm angle and moving to pitching would be something that could be of interest. So I spent the next year playing intramural and taking pitching lessons and learning how to throw from a lower arm slot. Tried back out the next year, and then ended up making the team at Alabama. So that's kind of how the arm slot came to be, kind of as a last resort to get to keep playing baseball.
Yeah, no one ever starts out that way, right? And I'm sure for Tyler, it's eventually you move down and it winds up being a last resort. But it's cool that was, the advice, and then you had to figure it out. So when you're a conventional pitcher, over the top, I mean, nobody's over the top like Trey Savage is over the top of most guys, right? You can drop to a 3/4, you can go halfway, you can go lower. What made you pick where you wound up?
Trial and error. So I had a full year of no competition, just bullpens and watching videos and trying to figure out what worked best. And so I went from every arm slot from a standard 3/4 to as low as Tyler, just trying to see where it fit in between, and then kind of landed about where I'm at now. Obviously some adaptations and age have changed that a little bit, but it was really just a trial and error of what seemed to make the best shapes at the best velo combinations, and what felt the most comfortable. So that's kind of where it ended up.
Yeah, you just answered the question that I was going to ask about shapes and velo. How much of it is about that? How much is it when you're facing hitters about deception?
Both. Yeah, I would say I get into trouble when shapes and velo are bad, even with deception, and I can do well or do poorly with bad deception and good shapes and velo. So I think it's a combination of both, finding that fine line of hey, this is what's best for overall health, repeatability, and also deception and pitch shapes and those types of things, and kind of combining hitter feedback with feels and what the data or pitching coaches may see and think. So trying to combine all that to what makes the most sense.
With Chase Lee, meeting the new guy, and it's really interesting to talk to someone who was on the path to like a regular civilian life, right? You're a normal-sized person. You weren't thinking when you went into college, I'm going to be a professional baseball player, even though clearly, you have the talent to do it. But like, what's it like to be off that track and then get back on?
Sure, I think it's just appreciative. I think it was humbling to be told, you're not going to be good enough to continue to play baseball. That's obviously a humbling statement. And I think you could do two things with that. You could pout and give up, or recognize it and figure out what may be the next steps to either move on from baseball or to continue playing. So immediately it's appreciation and gratitude to get to continue to play. Obviously it's a child's game and we all love to play it. But like you said, I shouldn't be here. I should be in a civilian job. I'm not. I don't fit the bill of what you would expect, a major league arm to look like. So a lot of it's just appreciating kind of what God's done for me and how He's brought me through this, the people He's allowed me to meet and interact with, and obviously the opportunities that have come with that. I think that's probably the biggest thing, is just being appreciative of every day.
How does that factor into interactions with these guys who, none of whom were headed for, a civilian life, and some of whom have been groomed for this life since they were 10 years old?
Sure. I think that's the awesome thing about this job, is everybody kind of comes from a different walk of life in some capacity. Everybody's got a little bit of a different background. And so not only can you learn from them, that they can also learn from you a little bit. Not saying you would, go assert authority in certain areas, but just making, you don't know anybody's story. You don't know what it took for them to get there. Some guys developed early, some guys developed late, some guys, this was destiny, and other guys, it seems like a couple steps and it worked out. So just learning from people, realizing that you're probably not the smartest or best in the room generally, so there's always something to be learned, and also knowing that you're also in the same room for a reason. It's not super intimidating. Like, I know what it took for me to get here, and so I don't have a identity crisis walking in. I kind of know that I have at least earned the opportunity to be able to have success.
Absolutely. And you say you're not the smartest guy in the room, but you have a degree in aeronautical engineering?
That's correct. So the official title would be Aerospace Engineering and Mechanics.
So you might be the smartest guy in the room.
I met a fellow he was a mechanical engineer this morning on the minor league side. But yeah, maybe not. It's just a piece of paper that said I could, go to school very well. So I don't know if it actually equates to intelligence or if I was just good at taking tests.
Look, I like that attitude a lot. And last year, Alan Roden was here, and he was a rocket scientist too. So, we appreciate those guys. But that's a really good way to think about it, because I agree with you. I've met a lot of dumb PhDs, and I've met a lot of smart people who never went to college.
Yeah.
It's a well-earned piece of paper for sure, and it says something about you that you're good at X, but it doesn't mean,
Yeah, it doesn't always contribute to common sense or applicable knowledge. So I could read a textbook and study well and take tests well, but thankfully I don't have to deal with that as a 9 to 5. I enjoy this job a little more than I enjoyed the textbooks. So
Yeah. Why did you choose that as a major?
I think as a young kid, it was you're sitting in high school like, what am I good at? Okay, I'm good at math and taking tests. I'm good at science, and okay, what pays the most out of all the jobs? And you see doctors and lawyers and engineers. It's like, okay, well, engineering most aligns with what my skill set would be at, and they pay well. That seems like something I could at least start in, and if I finish, we'll see kind of how that opens up later on. But that was the initial, just a quick Google search of who pays the most. And as a young kid, it's trying to, obviously you want to be something or become somebody, and so I think I viewed the world differently then than now. But that's how it started. And then as I got into classes, I was like, oh, this is pretty interesting. And then maybe about halfway through, I started getting a little bit better at baseball, and school became a little less interesting. But college credits don't always transfer easily, and with eligibility stuff, it made the most sense to continue with that degree. And so I ended up finishing. It really just sounded cool, and it aligned with what I was decent at school.
Look, I have a Bachelor of Science because it sounded cool also. So this is the way it works. But obviously the better path to a better living is playing big league baseball.
Yeah.
Does your college background help with like all the data that they're throwing at you and all these things that in the new school of the last decade of what we're looking at in baseball?
Sure. I think from my personal perspective, it can be a blessing and a curse almost. In a competition state of mind, I don't want to be thinking about pitch data or seam shift or whatever it may be in the 7th inning of a 1-run game.
Right.
I need to be focused on the hitter, and so there's times where that background, having too much information, can be dangerous for me. So I try to walk the line. It's helpful to be able to communicate with the new school and being able to use common language with the new pitching coaches or data guys, and be able to understand the whys and the hows and things like that. But when it comes to actually the game time, it can be a little dangerous. So trying to walk that line of, okay, what's helpful and what's hurtful when it comes to actually using all this information.
Right, you don't want to get locked into that paralysis by analysis sort of thing. Before I let you go, and this is great, thank you for all this time. It was a wonderful conversation. It's not about crunching the numbers in the bullpen, but about looking at it and seeing, and that there are going to be 20 pitchers in and out of this bullpen all year. Do you look at a target for, I want to be here, I want to make this team, and I want to be here the whole year, I want to pitch 60 innings, or with a guy with options, it's how they're going to wind up using you probably.
Sure, and I think subconsciously, everybody sets goals for themselves that are outside of their control. I would love to pace Tyler for appearances this year. I would love to spend the full year and contribute to a playoff team. Hopefully they can finish the year, but obviously those things are outside of my control. I can control my day-to-day, and that's about all I can control. And so resting in God's sovereignty over those things and kind of getting to work with the things that I can control and allowing the rest to take care of itself. I'm going to sleep well at night knowing that I'm doing everything I can, and regardless of the outcome, I'm control what you can control and let the rest take care of itself.
And we know we're going to see plenty of you in Toronto this year. This was a great conversation. Great to get to know you, and looking forward to seeing a lot more of you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me, and looking forward to a good year.
Chase Lee certainly pitching like someone who wants to make this team. He is having a sensational spring so far, but he is really up against it in the numbers game, and he has options. But again, I'm sure that we'll see lots of Chase Lee over the course of this season. We'll step away one more time, and when we come back, we'll hear from one of the Blue Jays' top prospects. It's Deep Left Field. I'm Mike Wilner. Thank you so much for joining us here on episode 337. Remember, you can always have your voice heard and join the conversation with an email to deepleftfield@thestar.ca. Arjun Nimmala is a top 100 prospect consensus across all the pundits who rate prospects in Major League Baseball. He's a 20-year-old shortstop who was the Blue Jays' first-round pick in 2023, and he's in big league camp for the first time, and he's holding his own. He's holding his own. He is hitting .263 through 11 games, but he's got a .391 on-base percentage. We haven't seen any slug. Only one of his 5 hits has been for extra bases. It's a double, but there is power there. He hit 17 home runs in his first full season in just 91 games. That was in 2024. Last year, spending the entire season in High A Vancouver as a 19-year-old, he hit 13 home runs, had an incredible April and May, but then the numbers fell off. And look, he's got to get used to the ups and downs. He had 543 plate appearances last season. That's by far the most he's ever had. He knows what he's up against. But we are probably going to see Arjun Nimmala in Double-A this season. If he'd finished last season stronger, maybe he would have started this year in New Hampshire, but he is probably going back to BC to play for Vancouver, at least to start the season. First big league camp is a big deal. He played in a couple of Grapefruit League games as a call-up from the minor league complex last year, but this year he has been there. And with the World Baseball Classic guys gone, he has been playing and seems like just a wonderful young man. He's trying to become just the second player of Indian heritage ever to make it to the major leagues. Kumar Rocker of the Texas Rangers was the first, so Nimmala has got a lot to play for. And here's our conversation. Arjun, thanks for doing this. Just wanted to, first of all, find out about your first real big league spring training. I know you popped into a few games last year, but what's it been like to really be a part of things this year?
I mean, it's amazing. I think the biggest thing for me is definitely to learn from these guys. You know, of course, most of them are gone because of the WBC, but to learn from these guys and get as much out of them as I can, you know, I think they're all in a spot that I would love to be in, and I know I will be in shortly, but it's just how much can I learn and how much can I implement their mindset into my game and how that will help me going forward.
How much of it is learning mindset and the way they approach the game as opposed to the X's and O's?
Yeah, I think that when it gets to a certain point, especially at this level in baseball, everyone has the physicality and has the tools and has their strengths, but I think the separator really comes within that mental side of the game and how this game is so hard, and I think everyone knows that. It's so easy to get caught up in the wrong things, such as, you know, of course you want to play well and help the team, but that happens not by trying to force those things to happen. You know, it's just doing what you need to do day in, day out, and trusting in that work that it'll happen in games. So I think the mental part of the game is something that these guys have down so well, and I think that's really what's separated, and that's what I'm trying to learn.
It is so strange to a lot of people that baseball is a try easier sport, right? Trying harder often works against you.
100%. I think that we put in all this work not so that we can try to worry about it in the game, right? We do all this, we work super hard to give ourselves that knowing that, oh, we put in the work. Now it's just about going out there, having fun, and doing what the team needs. So, you know, I think you're 100% right, and that's just the game. It's just the more you can understand that you're not in control of a lot of things, I don't want to say the easier the game gets, but the easier it will be on you to understand what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so flip to the other side on the non-mental game, just getting to watch Ernie Clement, who was nominated for 2 Gold Gloves last year, and Andres Jimenez, who might be the best defensive infielder in the game.
Yeah.
What are you seeing? What are you learning just by watching them play?
Yeah, I think it's just how mature these guys are in terms of how they put in work. You know, I think I've been able to take ground balls and watch both of these guys do their stuff on the dirt, and it's super sick to see. You know, they take such pride in what they're doing and how they're preparing for the game. And same thing goes in the batter's box, on the bases. They're there to help the team win, and they're there to do their best. And I think that's the same for everyone. It's just they've gone to a farther point in their lives, and they know what they need to do that's going to help them win.
And now that they're gone, that opens a door for you to show the big league staff a little bit more of what you're capable of doing, to play a little bit more. So how much are you looking forward to that?
Yeah, I look forward to playing as much as possible. I think what I'm trying to get the most out of is not necessarily, of course, like I said, you want to play well and have great numbers and whatnot. But for me, it's just the opportunity and the competition level that I'm going to be able to go up against. I've already had some pretty competitive at-bats against some really good players, but it's just, racking those up, getting as many of those as I can, and just executing my preparation, my routines, and going out there and playing.
Are you still at the point a few years in where, although this is only your second year playing big league games in camp, where you have to not say, whoa, that's that guy on the mound, right? This is someone I've watched and heard of.
100%. I think that's the mindset you should always have, regardless of what level you're at or who's on the mound. Yesterday we faced Scoobel. You could probably say he's the best pitcher in the game right now. And, it's the way that I tried to approach that is not that, we have to face Scoobel. It's more like I have that opportunity to face a guy who's got great stuff. And everyone at this level has great stuff. So to me personally, I think it's all equal. And it's about approaching the at-bats the same way, having an approach and just doing my job.
Looking back at facing him, though, did you say, okay, this is elite stuff?
Yeah, of course, I'll always, give credit where it's due. I think that his stuff is really good. His ability to pitch is also very good. So as a hitter, the best thing that we can do is stick to an approach and hope that something's in that spot. And and if that, happened to be a good pitch for me to hit, and I put a good swing on it, just ended up being a double play. But, it's just those are the at-bats where you really have to hone in on what you're looking for and almost be a little bit picky.
Look, that happens when you hit the ball hard sometimes. It's a good thing when there are people on base. You said earlier you're going to be there shortly where they are. I know it's all about what you can control, and you can only force the issue so much. How hard is it not to put a calendar on yourself?
Oh, it's extremely hard. I think one of the hardest things to do as a professional athlete for anyone in any shoes is to try to look into the future. It's so easy to see yourself where visualization is super important, but it's almost like it can be bad in terms of you thinking too far into the future, this year I'm going to debut or next year I'm going to win the All-Star or whatever it is, or be an All-Star, sorry. But it's very easy to get caught up in the future. So I think the biggest, part for me, especially knowing myself and having big goals and aspirations that I have, that I know I will get, it's just about how present I can be and how disciplined I can be to get myself to that point.
And how has it been for you climbing the ladder so far? I know there was a break once for a reset, and there was a tremendous start to last season. And what's the pro ball life been for you?
Yeah, I think, everyone knows there's been flashes. There's been, for me especially, there's definitely been some inconsistencies. And I think, it's just part of the game. I think for me, it's not necessarily going back to results. It's not necessarily about giving out the best results right now, right? It's about how do I find consistency in the long run and understand myself as a baseball player so that, I can consistently play, not have to bank on a year or a couple months of good play. It's just when things are going off, what do I need to do to get myself back to playing as well as I can?
What's the message that you're getting from the Jays?
I think the biggest message is to be myself. I think that I have my strengths and how important it is. And it's very important for me to stick to those strengths and understand that I have the skills to be exactly who I want to be. And now it's just about having that mental capability and that preparation and the trust that I can execute on a baseball field. So I think the biggest thing that they're doing is helping me trust myself and helping me understand that I am a good baseball player. And the only way that I'm going to find consistency is by having consistency off the field as well.
You would think getting drafted in the first round would say to you they think you are a good baseball player, but it's something that, I've been covering this team since long before you were born, since the 80s. But the fragility of the confidence of an athlete is something that's always surprised me, that the way it can go up and down. People see you in this uniform and think, all right, well, this guy knows, but it ebbs and flows, no?
100%, and that's just the game. I think there's so much in-depth mental things that I do not know about the game, that when we're playing well, we're playing well. But when we're playing bad, even though as much as you want to not care about it, it's something that's going to affect everyone, not just me. I think anybody in the entire sport can vouch for that. You know, that's just how baseball is, and how well a player can understand that he's going through failures, and how well a player can keep going on his consistency. That's what defines a player, not just how well they're playing in the moment, but how they can bounce back and how they can find consistency.
You guys are all about being the best you can and performing, and you're so hard on yourselves. And then you think, there's never been a hitter in the history of this game who's hasn't gotten out more than not, right? More often than not. It's an impossible game to master with a bat.
100%. That's 100% right. You know, you go through your high school and travel law and it's all good, but then you play this game at the highest level and it's going to be humbling. Especially, I definitely understood what I was getting into, but it's definitely a very hard sport, especially hitting. I think hitting, in my opinion, is the hardest thing to do in sports, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people can say the same thing. And it's not about mastering, right? It's not about being perfect. It's about how often can you win the mind game? How often can you win, this pitch, right? It's not about winning the season, right? If you think about the entire season as a whole, you're not staying in the present. So it's about, hey, let's win this pitch, let's win this at bat, and then you stack those together and you see success.
Yeah, and I'm with you 100% that hitting in baseball is the most difficult thing to do in any sport. Two more things for you. You're a big part of the future of this team, and I'm sure you see yourself that way. When you see things like Vladimir Guerrero Jr. signing a 14-year deal, Dylan Cease signing up for 6 years, are you thinking, man, I'm going to get to play with these guys for a long time?
100%. I think this team has done a really good job of signing really good players and keeping guys around. And for me, it's very exciting because, like I said before, these are guys that are exactly where I want to be, and they're living out their dreams. And for me to have fun with those guys and to chase World Series rings is going to be a lot of fun.
And the last thing, I guess, is whether you want to be or not, you're kind of a standard bearer, right? As the Indian kid who's moving up. How are you embracing that? And what kind of feedback have you gotten from Toronto? Because there's a huge community there that's really looking forward to you coming up.
Yeah, I think for me, it's definitely a very interesting situation because, growing up, I've always, you don't see many Indians playing sports in general. But for me, that was never the case. I was always just playing baseball the best that I can and helping the team win. But slowly and surely, I've started to understand that there's a lot that goes into it. And for me, especially now, it's not necessarily trying to impress the community, but it's about being the best player I can be while also, trying to inspire and show that it can be done. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's going to be huge as well.
You're trying to break the ceiling of, like, you can't be something unless you see something. To be the first one is not that easy.
Yeah, and I know that anyone can do it if they put their mind to it. Not only Indian people, I think it's possible by anyone, but it's not necessarily about breaking barriers, but it's more about just showing that there's a lot of different windows that one can go.
Absolutely. And you're choosing baseball, and so far so good. Thank you so much. It's great to get a chance to get to know you. I'm looking forward to watching a lot of you in the Grapefruit League and seeing you up in Canada soon.
Yeah, as soon as I can. Thank you.
That's Arjun Nimmala, and I hope you enjoyed that conversation as much as I did. Just a terrific young man. Really seems like he's got his head on his shoulders. He knows what he's up against, and he talks about winning each pitch, which is a great way to look at things. Also, yes, I know I said hope we'll see you up in Canada soon, even though he played most of last year in Vancouver and is probably going to start in Vancouver this year. I meant Toronto. I'm sure he knows that I meant Toronto, but still, I didn't like that I said that. But look, what are you going to do? A great conversation with Arjun Nimmala, also Tyler Rogers and Chase Lee. And now it's time to hear from you. The mailbag is always open at deepleftfield@thestar.ca. Some of you write in to ask a quick question. A lot of you write absolute novels, and I love it. I really do. I like how you're sitting down and putting your thoughts together and taking the time to share them with me, and I'm happy to read them as long as people continue to enjoy me reading them. Again, I've said this many times. I really miss that back and forth. I hosted the post-game show for 17 years, taking calls. Really enjoyed the back and forth with you all, and I'm glad that we are sort of reviving it with this mailbag. Every week, get your voice heard at Deep Left Field at thestar.ca. We begin this week with Paulo in Vancouver, who did write a novel, so we'll get to the meat of it here. Paulo says, I don't really have a question. It's more about responding to a game that came up a couple of weeks ago on the podcast, that unforgettable comeback against the Red Sox at Fenway Park on June 4th, 1989. You were right. That is, I think, one of those games that Jays fans from the 80s knew exactly where they were and what they were doing as it unfolded. That was the game that the Blue Jays, by the way, came back from 10-0 down in the 7th inning to beat the Red Sox. Paulo continues, for me, it was a particularly unforgettable way of experiencing a game. I started watching it at my nonny's house, my grandparents, where we would go for lunch every Sunday in Little Italy off College Street in Toronto. After lasagna, I'd rush off to the living room to catch the game. Can't recall if Don Chevrier was still on the Jays TV broadcast in 1989, but seeing him introduce the games back in the 80s are among my earliest sports fandom memories. I'm not sure either. I think Chevy might still have been doing it in 89, but I'm not 100% sure on that at all. Paulo says, that day we had an outing planned and there was no way I would be able to watch the end of the game. Oh, well, I thought pretty much right off the bat after the Red Sox took a 5-0 lead in the first, maybe I won't be missing much. As the score worsened, it seemed that maybe it would be a good day for an outing, but try telling that to a baseball-obsessed 12-year-old. I knew it ain't over till it's over, and I wasn't going to give up on that game. Luckily, I had a portable radio with me, and I was determined to follow along as we headed out for our outing, which was to hike the Scarborough Bluffs. Off we went. It was a gorgeous day, or at least that's the way I remember it. Somehow we clambered up one part of the bluffs themselves. All the while, I had the radio on, and as we continued our nature walk, I just remember paying less and less attention to the natural beauty around me and more attention to the game, which was getting more and more interesting by the second. When Ernie Witt hit that grand slam in the 9th inning, I was whooping it up on the trail, my kid brothers and my mother not entirely sharing my excitement, although I think they were happy for me. I'll never forget that moment, nor when Junior Felix hit the go-ahead shot a couple of innings later. Those are the memories that keep you warm when thoughts of balls stuck at the base of outfield walls or Andy Pages leaping out of nowhere inevitably flash before your eyes. Thanks for always, as always, for the podcast. Great to hear from the Jimenezes last week. Thank you, Paulo. Appreciate it. And look, thanks for sharing the memory. That's what baseball is. It builds those memories, those games that you absolutely will never forget. And that was one of them. And then the next day, they came here and opened Skydome. Scott didn't tell me where he is, but says, hi, Mike, I would love for someone covering the team to ask Mark Shapiro if there's any serious consideration being given by the team and ownership about hosting a round of the next World Baseball Classic in Toronto. I was at a couple of the games at Skydome in 2009, and the Canada-U.S.A. game, 42,314 people in attendance, was by far the most juiced I've seen a crowd be there in those often lean years between 1993 and 2015. And now I feel there's a much more engaged baseball fan base in the city. There are more Canadians in Major League Baseball for fans to recognize, and the tournament itself has grown in stature and popularity. I definitely buy a package for all the games. Scott, it's a good question. And honestly, I don't know how it works. I don't know if a city applies for it, if Major League Baseball just chooses it, if an ownership group can step up and say, hey, let's go. And I don't know what kind of impression 2009 left. But you're right. I called that game across Canada on the radio, that Canada-US game. And that was by far the most excited, the loudest that I've seen that ballpark, that I had seen that ballpark since 1993 and until 2015. If you do a World Baseball Classic pool here in Toronto, I would think you got a lot of population groups to choose from, right? This is a wildly multicultural city. Italy was here in 2009, and I think with the Italian community in Toronto, it'd be great to have Italy here, although look how good they are. They kind of pose a problem. You don't have to have the U.S. because there would still be a pool or two in the United States. I think it'd be great. I'm all for it. And sure, I'll ask Mark Shapiro. We'll see what he says. Thanks for the question, Scott. Couple more here in the mailbag. Justin in Pickering says, "Hi, Mike. I grew up in the era of the prototypical Ricky Henderson-style leadoff hitter, where the goal was to get on base, look to steal second, and have the guys behind you in the lineup cash you in. So can you explain why one of the two best home run hitters of this era in Shohei Ohtani bats leadoff? Is the strategy to get your best hitter as many at-bats as possible? And if so, why do other elite power hitters like Judge, Vlad, etc. not hit leadoff?" Thanks, Justin, for the question. And first of all, let's put it out there. Ricky Henderson was a unicorn. And I know we talk about leadoff hitters in the 80s, Ricky Henderson, Tim Raines, Vince Coleman. Ricky Henderson was a guy who always got on base over 40% of the time, hit a bunch of homers, and stole a bunch of bases. So that prototype, there's never been anything like it, and there likely will never be anything like it again. Though Shohei Ohtani is close. He gets on base a ton, hits way more homers than Ricky did, steals a lot of bases. But I think the view of the game has changed over the years, where you want your best hitters getting as many at-bats as possible. That's why Jose Bautista led off a ton for the Blue Jays. But some teams balance that with the idea of when you have your huge power hitter coming up, you want there to be at least a chance every time that batter comes to the plate that there's somebody on base for them to drive in. So that's why Aaron Judge doesn't lead off. That's why Vladimir Guerrero Jr. doesn't lead off. Shohei Ohtani, you have that luxury on the Dodgers of having Freddie Freeman and Mookie Betts as well, and a phenomenal offense. So why not give Shohei the most at-bats? If it were up to me, I would put an on-base machine leading off and then my best hitter batting second. But at the same time, when the lineup turns over, I don't know that you want a punch and Judy hitter batting the most often with a chance to drive in runs. But it's a balance, and nobody's been able so far to figure out which is exactly the best. For me, your best hitter bats second. Two more here in the mailbag. Mike in Toronto says, any idea how Dalton Varshaw's arm is at the moment? He was obviously not throwing at peak strength last year. How's he looked in camp? Mike, I don't know that I saw Dalton Varshaw have to make a single competitive throw the whole 10 days that I was down in Florida. But in Tuesday's game against Atlanta, he did. Had to make a really strong throw to third base to keep a runner at second on a fly ball. And he looked like pre-surgery Dalton Varshaw. So, seems like the arm is fine to me. We'll find out once the season starts. And finally, we hear, as we almost always do, from June in London after Wednesday's WBC affair. And she says, hi, Mike, what a day for Canadian baseball. Wonder if James Paxton could be talked out of retirement to be the Jays' primary left-hander out of the pen. That fastball hitting 97 at times would be sweet. Sadly, I doubt he wants to do that. Oh, well. The biggest challenges for the Jays are left field, the bench, and the bullpen, with the rotation largely dictating the bullpen's usage. One note here. I just wish, and this was a sticking point for me in the Jays talk years as well, I just wish when people were presenting their opinion, they would present it as their opinion and not as a fact. That's a factual statement. The biggest challenges for the Jays are left field, the bench, and the bullpen. But it's not a fact. That's her opinion. So you got to throw in an in my mind or I believe or any of that stuff. Anyway, June continues. If, a big if, everyone currently healthy remains so, I see tandem starts for you Savage with someone else, Ponce, Scherzer, or Lauer. Doing two of those might be ideal despite the effect on the bullpen, cutting it down to 6. Of course, on tandem days, those two might be it for the pitchers. That's giving the pen 2 nights off every time through. At this point, I'm expecting everyone with options pretty much to be on edge. Leo Jimenez, I could see being kept as a semi-platoon with Andres Jimenez, Leo at second, Ernie to short against lefties. Meanwhile, the more I see of Eloy Jimenez hitting, the more I like him. In your opinion, is there any chance he will play regularly in left field? If you keep Leo Jimenez, you probably lose Davis Schneider, who has options. Leo doesn't have options. That's going to be a tough one, and hopefully he gets a lot of action as Panama is out of the World Baseball Classic and Leo returns to the team. As I mentioned earlier, Alejandro Kirk is back with the team as well. Yariel Rodriguez back with the team with Cuba out. RJ Schreck and CJ Stubbs, both of whom are destined for Buffalo, are back with the team with Israel out. But, of course, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., Andres Jimenez, Ernie Clement, Kazuma Okamoto continue on into the quarterfinals in the World Baseball Classic. But they will all be back by the time you hear this next week, or by the time next Thursday's episode comes out. The WBC will end on Wednesday night in Miami. There is a chance that Eloy Jimenez plays regularly in left field. It's not a great chance, and I would say that there's no chance it happens at the beginning of the season, but there is absolutely a way that Eloy Jimenez forces himself into regular work. I cannot see the Blue Jays going with 7 starters and 6 relievers, even though the tandem days, the piggybacking is a suggestion I'm sure they're thinking about. I would think at this point that something's going to happen. We know Shane Bieber's starting the season on the injured list. Trey Savage could start the season in Buffalo as he works to strengthen, even though the Blue Jays are adamantly denying that will happen. Someone could still get hurt over the course of the next 2 weeks, but it looks like they've left themselves in a tough spot by collecting all these arms as far as roster construction goes. It's hard to say that Max Scherzer doesn't start with the team as stretched out as he is already. We'll see what happens with him as far as the rest of the spring, but he could certainly start the season on the injured list for build-up. We'll see. It's an interesting conundrum in which the Blue Jays find themselves, and more will be revealed over the next week and change as they get ready for opening day. When this show drops, there'll only be 10 days left in the grapefruit season. 2 weeks left until opening day. The baseball season is almost here, but we've still got a little bit of World Baseball Classic to enjoy, with Canada taking on the United States in the quarterfinal on Friday night. That's going to do it for episode 337. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much to my guests, Tyler Rogers, Chase Lee, Arjun Nimmala. Thank you to the best production crew that there is. Executive producer, JP Fozo, sound engineers, Sean Pattenden, and Crawford Blair, who had a lot more cleaning up to do this week than usual. Sorry about that. The editor-in-chief of the Toronto Star is Nicole McIntyre. The biggest thank you, of course, goes to you. Whether it's your first time listening, your 337th, or anywhere in between, we wouldn't be able to do any of this without you. We appreciate you so much. And tell all your friends, because we are this close to the start of another big league baseball season. This podcast drops every Thursday afternoon, but it will drop more often than that between now and opening day, so make sure you subscribe or favorite so you never miss an episode. My name is Mike Wilner. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time right here in Deep Left Field.